Good evening. We'll be starting this meeting momentarily. Welcome to Valley Water. For those of you in the lobby, we'll be starting this meeting momentarily. Please grab a cookie and coffee and come on in carefully. Okay, good evening. Welcome to our Canal Maintenance Program Notice of Preparation Scoping Meeting. We'd like to welcome those joining us over Zoom. This meeting is also being recorded for anyone who couldn't participate tonight or who simply wants to review it, and you can watch it on the Valley Water YouTube channel. Just a note, for those of you on Zoom, if you have questions as they come up, please use the question and answer portal, the button there that says Q&A rather than the chat. That way we'll be able to respond to you. Tonight we'll provide an overview of the proposed program and the California Environmental Quality Act environmental review process. There'll be an opportunity for the public to provide verbal comments on the scope of the environmental analysis for this project, and alternatively, comments can be submitted in writing by sending them to the email address and/or mailing address that is included in your materials. Remember, we need to receive your comments in writing via email or mail during the 30-day public review period, which started January 10th. The presentation will include many details of the process and where to submit written comments by February 12th. A few housekeeping items for those of you joining us here at Valley Water's headquarters. The restrooms are located just outside to the left in the lobby, and there are cookies and coffee from Panera. And we also have some valuable water conservation information and giveaways to help your family make conservation a way of life. Even after all the recent rain, conservation remains an ongoing and collective goal. We want to make water conservation a way of life. Following the meeting, we will ask that you fill out a brief survey that was included with your materials when you came in. These are helpful for us as we strive to make our meetings more meaningful and provide a better use of your time. Also included in the meeting materials are instructions for how to submit those comments via email and mail. And now I would like to introduce to you our chair of our board of directors, Chair Nai Shwea. She represents a portion of the area where this project is located. She was first elected to the Valley Water Board of Directors in November 2012 to represent District 5, which includes the cities of Cupertino, Saratoga, sections of Central and South Sunnyvale, and parts of West San Jose. Chair Shwea was reelected in 2016 and 2020. Please welcome our chair, Nai Shwea.
Thank you, Mike, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this public meeting related to our canal maintenance program. Before I start, I first like to introduce my colleague from Valley Water Board of Directors. I believe Director John Varela, representing District 1, is on the Zoom. And also I saw Director Rebecca Eisenberg on the Zoom. She's representing District 7. And also we have some distinguished guests attending tonight's meeting. Staff person from Assemblywoman Gail Pellerin, Los Gatos City Council, Maureen Rusto, and also representative from Congressman Jimmy Panetta's office. So thank you very much for coming. And as Mike mentioned, tonight's meeting is the NOP, Notice of Preparation, for the district's Valley Waters Canal Maintenance Program, EIR, preparation. Some of you already know that these 25 miles of canal is a very important and a component of our overall water utility system. And together with our dams and reservoirs and pipelines and drinking water treatment plant, pumping station, et cetera, collectively, they work as a system so that Valley Water can provide clean, safe water to people and business in Santa Clara County. Therefore, timely completion of canal maintenance is very critical to preserve the structural and the functional integrity of these canals and protecting public safety and reducing maintenance costs that we all want to maintain, reducing costs. And this program will also help reduce the impacts to sensitive species and their habitat associated with canal maintenance. So please ask questions and also give us your comments. And with your comments, we can make this EIR process and then the end product a good product because it incorporated your feedback and comments. So thank you again for taking the time to come to tonight's meeting. I will turn the mic back to.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Shwaya. And again, welcome to everyone. We have over 13 people joining us on Zoom as well. So for those of us in the room, we have virtual company. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter for tonight. Tonight's presentation will be presented by Valley Water's Kelly White, who is the environmental planner and environmental project manager for this project. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly White. I'm an environmental planner in Valley Water's Raw Water Operations and Maintenance Environmental Support Unit. The release of the Notice of Preparation of an Environmental Impact Report earlier this month officially kicked off the California Environmental Quality Act environmental review process and the scoping period for the Canal Maintenance Program. The scoping period is the first of several opportunities for members of the public, resource agencies, other stakeholders, and interested parties to provide input on the project as Valley Water considers its environmental impacts and the ways in which Valley Water can reduce the impacts of the project to the extent feasible. Tonight, I will explain the purpose of the CEQA scoping meeting, provide an overview of the Canal Maintenance Program, including the canals and maintenance activities that would be included in the program. I will provide an overview of the CEQA process, the EIR schedule, and next steps. And we will provide instructions on how to submit written comments. As Mike mentioned, at the end of this presentation, you will have an opportunity to provide comments and ask questions. However, we highly encourage you to also submit your comments in writing. So once again, the purpose of this scoping meeting is to solicit input from members of the public, resource agencies, stakeholders, and other interested parties on the scope of the environmental issues that should be addressed in the EIR, as well as feasible mitigation measures that could avoid or reduce the adverse environmental effects of the project. Valley Water will consider the comments received during scoping when we prepare the draft EIR. The objectives of the Canal Maintenance Program are to facilitate the timely completion of routine, preventative, and corrective canal maintenance, to preserve the structural and functional integrity of operable canals and adjoining facilities, reduce the risk of canal failure and inadvertent damage to private and public property, and to conduct canal maintenance as a coordinated and comprehensive program that minimizes impacts to the environment, sensitive species, and habitat. The Canal Maintenance Program includes maintenance of the operable and inoperable canals shown here. Valley Water's canals were built in the 1930s and 1950s to transfer water to groundwater recharge facilities and surface storage reservoirs. A few are still important components of our system and are maintained to ensure ongoing functionality and structural integrity. Other canals have not been used for decades, but have not been decommissioned or formally abandoned. Although the inoperable canals were not designed for stormwater conveyance, they collect and convey incidental stormwater runoff and provide flood protection benefits for down gradient properties. As a result, Valley Water maintains the inoperable canal to protect public safety and reduce the risk of damage to private and public property associated with overtopping and localized flooding or failure of the canal embankment. Canal maintenance activities include managing the vegetation in the canal and along the canal access road, removing excess sediment and landslide debris from the canal, bank stabilization, minor repairs to the canal lining using grout, concrete patches, or shotcrete, cleaning out, repairing, and replacing the culverts that convey runoff over the Coyote Alamedas Canal and the culverts that convey the canals beneath roads, maintenance of the canal access road, and managing conflicts with ground squirrels and other burrowing animals. It's important to note that canal maintenance is an ongoing activity. Valley Water has been maintaining these canals for decades. However, whereas currently canal maintenance is evaluated on a case-by-case basis and limited in scope to avoid impacts, implementation of the program would facilitate the timely completion of maintenance, reduce the risk of failure, and reduce the need for and cost of emergency repairs. Coyote Alamedas Canal, Coyote Canal, and Coyote Canal Extension are the inoperable canals in the program. These canals haven't been used for decades and are inoperable. Although we have no intention of using these again, Valley Water maintains them to reduce liability risks associated with localized flooding, embankment failure, and wildfire hazards. First, I'm going to talk about the Coyote Alamedas Canal, which is a 10.6-mile shotcrete-lined canal along the northern edge of the Santa Teresa foothills. The canal was constructed in 1953 and taken offline in 1980. Of the three inoperable canals, Coyote Alamedas Canal is the canal we maintain most regularly because we've had permanent incidental take coverage under the Valley Habitat Plan for all but the Tularia Hill portion of this canal for several years now. The canal access road is a popular, albeit illegal, recreational trail for locals. We mow the canal access road and embankment annually to maintain vehicular access for canal inspections and maintenance and to reduce wildfire fuels. The photo on the left shows material from debris flows and landslides that has fallen into the canal. To prevent blockages and overtopping, we periodically remove sediment and vegetation from the canal. Although Coyote Alamedas Canal was not designed for stormwater conveyance, it provides flood protection benefits for the residential developments below the canal. To minimize the amount of runoff in the canal, Valley Water maintains culverts that convey concentrated runoff over and under the canal to the city of San Jose's stormwater system. So the photo on the right shows the upstream end of a typical culvert that conveys runoff over the canal and under the canal maintenance road. On the left is the typical downstream end of these culverts, where they connect to the city of San Jose's stormwater system at the manhole. The Coyote Canal and Coyote Canal Extension are located along the Coyote Creek Valley and drain several small tributaries of Coyote Creek. Coyote Canal and Coyote Canal Extension were constructed in 1936 and 1955 and last operated in 98 and 88, respectively. Due to the presence of rare plants, serpentine soils, and other sensitive resources, and because we only have incidental take coverage under the Valley Habitat Plan to maintain 3 miles of these canals, our ability to maintain these has been limited, and we've ended up having to make corrective repairs under emergency conditions at significant cost to the district. So these are photos of the Coyote Canal. The main issue along this reach is excess in-channel vegetation growth and the accumulation of sediment that causes water to back up and drain in the wrong direction. These are photos of Coyote Canal Extension. In this reach, well, not necessarily this reach, but along the Coyote Canal Extension, sometimes the excess in-channel vegetation growth and accumulation of sediment can cause the canal to overtop and result in localized flooding. The operable canals include the 1 mile long Upper Page Ditch, the 1.6 mile long Kirk Ditch, and the 2.5 mile long Vasona Canal. These canals traverse low-lying urban and industrial areas in the town of Los Gatos and the city of Campbell. Unlike the inoperable hillside canals that I discussed earlier, these canals are not prone to overtopping, and failure of the canal embankment is rare. Upper Page Ditch is used for groundwater recharge and extends from Los Gatos Creek County Park to the Camden and Page groundwater percolation ponds. Upper Page Ditch requires periodic removal of excess in-channel vegetation and sediment and minor lining repairs to maintain conveyance capacity and functionality and to prevent deterioration. Similar to Upper Page Ditch, Kirk Ditch is also used for groundwater recharge. It also extends from Los Gatos Creek County Park. It goes to the Oka and McGlindsey groundwater percolation ponds, and it also requires periodic removal of vegetation and sediment and minor lining repairs. Vasona Canal extends from Vasona Reservoir to Santa Masakino Creek. Vasona Canal is not used for day-to-day operations and is maintained as a standby facility. In most years, maintenance is limited to vegetation management. Implementation of the Canal Maintenance Program would not result in the construction of new facilities. It would not change the future use or operation of the canals. It would not change or increase the existing footprint of the canals and canal access roads. And although sections of the inoperable canals are currently overgrown, it would not result in the disturbance of previously undisturbed areas. CEQA is triggered when a lead agency takes a discretionary action. CEQA requires that the environmental impacts of a project be evaluated. If it is determined that the project could have a significant adverse effect on the environment, CEQA requires that mitigation measures and/or project alternatives that avoid or reduce the significant adverse effect be identified. CEQA fosters informed decision-making by requiring that agencies consider the environmental consequences of their actions during project approval. CEQA prevents significant avoidable environmental damage by requiring that agencies implement feasible mitigation measures and/or alternatives that lessen or avoid significant adverse effects. CEQA ensures transparency by requiring public disclosure of the environmental effects of projects and providing opportunities for public participation in the decision-making process. So this flow chart shows the CEQA process. As the agency responsible for approving and carrying out the Canal Maintenance Program, Valley Water is responsible for CEQA compliance with the program. Valley Water has determined that the Canal Maintenance Program requires preparation of an environmental impact report and published a notice of preparation of an EIR in early January, thereby kicking off a 30-day public scoping period. As I've mentioned, the scoping period provides an opportunity for the public to comment on the scope of the EIR analysis and any environmental concerns they have about the project. The scoping period ends on February 12th. Valley Water will consider the scoping comments when we prepare the draft EIR. Once the draft EIR has been prepared, it will be released for a 45-day public review period, during which the public will have an opportunity to comment on the accuracy and adequacy of the environmental analysis. Valley Water will then prepare a final EIR, which will consist of written responses to comments received on the draft EIR and revisions to the draft EIR analysis if appropriate. The Board of Directors will hold a public hearing to consider whether to certify the EIR and approve the project. If the board chooses to certify the EIR and approve the project, Valley Water will file a notice of determination with the county clerk and the CEQA process will be complete. So here's a timeline. We released the NOP earlier in January. Scoping period ends February 12th. Valley Water anticipates publishing the draft EIR in summer of 2025 and bringing the final EIR before the Board of Directors in spring of 2026. The draft EIR will consider all of the environmental resource topics and checklist questions in Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines. However, these are the key topics that Valley Water has identified thus far. The EIR will also evaluate the potential for growth-inducing impacts, although there aren't any, as well as cumulative impacts resulting from implementation of the Canal Maintenance Program in combination with other projects in the vicinity. The EIR will evaluate the potential for maintenance to adversely affect aquatic and terrestrial habitats and special status plants and wildlife. We'll evaluate the potential for maintenance to cause erosion, increase sedimentation, and degrade surface water quality. The EIR will also evaluate the potential for in-channel maintenance work to temporarily impede flow, alter drainage patterns, and adversely affect runoff conditions. The EIR will evaluate potential human health hazards associated with the disturbance of naturally occurring asbestos, as well as from the improper use, storage, transport, or disposal of hazardous materials. We'll evaluate temporary increases in dust, criteria air pollutants, and greenhouse gas emissions from maintenance vehicles and equipment, as well as temporary increases in noise while the maintenance is occurring. Although the Canal Maintenance Program would not result in the construction of new facilities or introduce any elements to the setting that are not already present, the EIR will evaluate the potential for vegetation management activities to impact aesthetic resources. Although maintenance would occur within previously disturbed areas and within the existing facility footprints, the EIR will evaluate potential impacts to known and unknown tribal cultural resources. We'll evaluate potential impacts to known and unknown historical and archaeological resources and human remains. And we will evaluate the project's potential to increase wildfire hazards from the operation of maintenance equipment or landscaping equipment used for maintenance. So once again, Valley Water is seeking your input on the scope of the EIR analysis, and we encourage you to provide your comments in writing. In formulating your comments, please identify the environmental areas and specific impacts that you are concerned about. If you have suggestions on how to mitigate those impacts, we invite you to provide those too. So here's how you can submit written comments. You can send them to me via mail or submit them via email. And just a friendly reminder that the scoping period ends on February 12th.
Thank you, Kelly. That was very good, super helpful. And this is the portion when we get to hear from you, our participants on Zoom and those in the room. We'd be happy to take your questions now. If anyone wants to raise their hand, and I'll come over and you can ask your questions. And those on Zoom, put it in the question and answer portal, and we will respond.
If there are none in the room, I've got one to start us off. How will this proposed program be funded, and how much will it cost?
So the canals are owned by the Water Utility Enterprise. So the Canal Maintenance Program is funded by the Water Utility Enterprise Fund, or Fund 61. This fund includes operations and maintenance of water utility facilities. In terms of the cost of implementation, that's really hard to estimate. You know, the canal maintenance, much of the canal maintenance work is conditions-based, and it varies from year to year. So we can have like 5 years where we don't have, hardly any maintenance or any issues along a canal. And then, we get 21, atmospheric storm events in a month, and that changes. So Valley Water does expect the Canal Maintenance Program to reduce the overall cost of canal maintenance. And that's because we'll be able to conduct maintenance in a timely manner and with less restrictions, thereby reducing the frequency and cost of emergency repairs.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. I've got a question here in the room.
Well, I don't know that it's a question, but I'm Lyndon Shea and I live near the Alamitos Canal. And I walk up there a lot, and some friends and I, we've been pulling stinkwort up there for the last 3 years. And so one thing I'd like to see in your canal maintenance is, I know you go through in the spring and you mow everything down, but the stinkwort comes up in like June, July, August, and so forth. So it'd be great if you all could come through and mow that down too, or do something to mitigate that later on in the summertime. And I noticed that one of the things on here is that you want to take out trees along there. And there are, at least along the Alamitos Canal portion, there are some native trees. There's elderberry trees and there's wild roses and, oaks and stuff. So to the extent that you can leave those would be great. And then I'm also wondering, like, with this, would access to the trail change? Because, I know that it's illegal. We're not supposed to be up there. But where there's a canal trail, there's a way, and it's a wonderful community asset. So I'm
It
wondering.
is a nice trail.
Sorry?
I've been on that, maintenance road. It is a nice maintenance road. With respect to the stinkwort, that would be a good comment to submit in writing, because I feel like, there might be ways in which we conduct the maintenance to reduce the spread of stinkwort too. So I think that'd be a good comment to submit in writing. With respect to the canal maintenance road along the Coyote Alamitos Canal. So, I actually prepared some notes for that because I suspected that might come up. So we're going to continue to maintain the canal maintenance road as a maintenance road. The use of that canal as a recreational facility is not, expressly permitted by Valley Water. And because Valley Water only owns 9% of the land underlying that canal and canal access road in fee title, the rest of it is in easements. We don't have the land rights to change the use of change the use of that land or do anything else with that land. We would like to get rid of the canal, but we can't. But it's just, there's a lot of challenges to that. But so we can't authorize the use of a recreational trail. I know that that's been something a lot of folks have been wanting to formally authorize for some time now.
Oh, sorry. That would be a whole separate meeting, I would expect.
That'd be a whole separate project.
Whole separate project.
I'm not saying I want it formalized. I don't want a bike trail up there. I guess that sounds sort of NIMBY of me, but I think it's kind of perfect the way it is. So, and people drive over and go into the canal trail from like Foothill Park and stuff. So it's not just people in the neighborhood, but it's sort of a, secret that nobody talks about or everybody talks about. And, so anyway, I think it's fine the way it is. And then the other thing that we've been doing up there is scattering some native seeds as well. And so I'd love to be able to coordinate better with people here at Valley Water about where I do that and so forth. And I did have a conversation with the guys who were up there maintaining a couple of years ago, two springs ago. And so we've been in touch. And so last spring, I told them I cordoned off where I had planted things and they didn't whack that area. And I was so grateful. It was so nice of them. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll leave those. So, hopefully over time, if we can keep doing this, we'll have more and more of that. So it'd be nice to work with you guys to make that a reality. So.
Thank you.
Sounds like a potential adopt a canal project. All great to put in writing so that they're considered as a part of this process. So that way it's on the record. Great.
I do have another one here on Zoom unless.
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay.
Kelly, go ahead and respond.
On Lynn's initial, so you mentioned that the canal maintenance program includes tree removal. We would only be removing trees that are growing in the canal maintenance road or in the canal, even though we don't use the canal. There is potential for tree roots to destabilize the canal embankment, but outside of the canal and the canal maintenance road, we wouldn't be removing trees. So that's just, there's saplings when we're removing them.
Great clarification. Go ahead, Gianna, take the Zoom question.
All right. So on Zoom, members of the Santa Teresa Foothill Neighborhood Association have called numerous times to report graffiti. This used to be addressed quickly, but lately there has been limited response. Will this be a part of the project or can it be addressed separately?
I would say that can be addressed separately. Like there's like we don't need to wait for the environmental review process for the canal maintenance program to be completed before we can deal with graffiti. That's not even that's actually something that we try to stay on top of, but it's 10.6 miles, and so it's I would recommend going on Access Valley Water and submitting a request there. We're actually pretty good about responding to requests, so that would be the fastest way to address that.
We have recently revamped the software system that runs Access Valley Water. So it is sort of our built-in accountability feature. I see our chair nodding her head. I'm sure that's their built-in accountability feature when the chair of our board is nodding that we should be doing something. So feel free to use that and Access Valley Water, which is found, you can just go on our valleywater.org website, type in Access Valley Water, and that'll take you right to the portal, and you type it in under reporting graffiti, and then that goes right to the person whose job is to pick up, clean up graffiti. And so it's a county-wide organization, so but they will prioritize it.
And it's been a brand new site too. We completely revamped it. It's really nice now. So
It's now using Salesforce instead of PeopleSoft for those technology-oriented folks at home.
Thank you. And then a comment that tied into that was a goal of the Santa Teresa Foothills Neighborhood Association has been to develop a trail along the canal. There may be future work on this, so we do not want this new maintenance project to eliminate this as a possibility in the future as a separate project.
The canal maintenance program will not affect the future uses or operations of the canal or the canal access road. So, if the community association, if that interest group, if they are able to turn it into a trail and rid us of that canal, please do. But yeah, this wouldn't affect that. So.
Great question and great answer. Hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions in the room? Linka? Okay, sure.
Hi, thanks so much for the presentation. I'm Lenka Wright, and I had a question for you regarding the timeline, because I saw some others in the room kind of had a reaction when we're looking at from now to spring 2026. Why so long?
I don't know how familiar you are with the California Environmental Quality Act, but it tends to take a while, especially when you're preparing an EIR. And we determined that we need to prepare an EIR because we want the flexibility. Oops, sorry, the flexibility of maintaining these canals as as and when needed. But yeah, so that's a realistic schedule. It could be, maybe it'll be shorter, but there's yeah, that's a realistic timeline, I'd say.
As a follow-up, it doesn't mean we're not going to be maintaining the canals in the interim, right? We're going to still be doing what we have been doing where we're allowed to do it under the current rules, right?
Absolutely.
Great. Gianna, I see you had another.
Yeah. How will our comments be incorporated into the draft EIR and then potentially the future EIR?
Yeah, so the draft EIR is the EIR, which just gets perfected by the end, perfected or improved. So your comments should be focused on the environmental analysis. It should be, you should be expressing concerns about environmental resources and environmental impacts. So if you submit a comment on, let's say,
Water quality.
yeah, let's say you're concerned that canal maintenance or sediment removal or vegetation removal from the canal will result in increased soil erosion and downstream impacts to surface water quality, or even mowing along the canal embankment, like that could cause downstream increase in soil erosion or sedimentation. Then submit that comment. And then we'll evaluate that, or we'll address that comment in the hydrology and water quality section. if you were to submit a comment expressing your dislike for the program, that's what, you know, you're not really gonna get very far with that because we're looking for comments on the scope of the analysis.
The things that should be considered as a part of our environmental review.
Exactly,
Got it.
yeah. Thank you.
And as a part of this, there was in this last year, even though we weren't a multi-year drought, we had quite a bit of rain in January, February, and March. Did that impact the canals?
I'll actually let Jason Araujo talk about that. That did. Jason, are you online?
This is the phone a friend portion of the
Uh-huh.
presentation. One
Well,
of our
he's
experts.
really familiar with all the maintenance. laws.
Absolutely. Jason, are you unmuted?
Oh, there he is.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
We hear you now.
All right, perfect. Yes, so this last winter's rain amount and just atmospheric rivers we did have some mudslides that we did have to take care of and you know, dig out and stuff. So last spring we went through almost all of the canal, removed all the sediment, tules, weeds, and some sections of the canal that were damaged.
Terrific. And that was that mostly on the Alamitos Canal?
Correct.
And for those that may not be familiar with this geographically, there are, this is partway up the hillside. And so down below it, there are the backyards of homes. So, and streets and some trails and roadways. So this slippage could flow into someone's backyard. So that's part of something that came up during the Emergency Operations Center, was that we had to do some emergency repairs. So thanks for that clarification, Jason. Gianna, I see you have a question.
I do. I have another one here on Zoom. Will methods to eliminate ground squirrels use techniques that do not have impacts on the nearby owls and other raptors, such as various poisons? We are concerned because these type of chemicals have been used in the past.
Great
Thank you
question.
for that comment. We're, you know, we are not currently managing the ground squirrels along the canals or along the inoperable canals. We do manage it along the Kirk Ditch and the Upper Page Ditch. We trap squirrels. We do trapping, and there's not poison. Like, it's just a food that we use to bait them. Like I guess they use like berries and just
To entice
there's
them
no
into the
toxins
traps.
in there. And I don't see Valley Water going in that direction at all. So, but that would be a good comment to submit.
That would be an excellent comment to submit in writing by February 12th, I
Yes.
believe.
Yes.
In writing or an email. There was work. There was a project that Valley Water did last summer along the Coyote Creek out in North San Jose near Tasman Road, where it's a very large levee there, where they would dig up the top portion and then bury metal screens to prevent ground squirrels from burrowing into these giant levees, especially where they're holding back huge amounts of water in the high-tech capital of Silicon Valley. And so that was a project that Valley Water did last year that I'm familiar with, that I thought I would share that. But it didn't involve trapping. It involved a lot of earth moving and placing this big metal screen over half a mile long and then burying it again. So, but I don't believe any squirrels were harmed in that. Certainly not poisoned.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Gianna, on Zoom?
Yeah, I've got another one. What potential effects could surrounding neighborhoods see by these maintenance activities?
In the short term, the neighborhoods could experience temporary increases in noise levels, dust, emissions from like the exhaust of maintenance equipment. In the long term, it'd be a reduced hazards, reduced risk of localized flooding and failure of the embankment, and lower risk of inadvertent damage to their homes.
And then the effects that you just mentioned, will Valley Water be doing anything to mitigate those?
Yes, that's what the EIR is for.
So that'll be considered as a part of the EIR. Great.
Yes, absolutely.
Terrific. Any other questions in the room? Yes, here we go.
one more comment. This might have been an inadvertent effect of the scooping out of all the sediment that was done along the Alamedos Creek or Canal last spring, is that soon after that happened, we ended up with 2 dead deer in the canal that, you know, I'd never seen like dead deer like that had obviously been hit by a coyote or a cougar or something. And I think that maybe it was because they, you know, I've seen them use those sediment deposits to get in and out of the canal. And these both happened in areas where all that sediment had been scooped out. So I'm not passing any judgment on if that's a good or bad thing, but I just thought you might want to know that that might have been a result of the scooping out of the sediment.
Yeah, I think that certainly wouldn't be something that we certainly don't want that to happen. But from my recollection, because I went out there to see the work that was being done when we're removing sediment during the emergency declaration, and it was that like that whole hillside is very prone to landslides, and so a lot of times like the debris will just like be reactivated when it gets wet and fall into the canal. So it's not that. This really is like plugs in the canal. And, at that time, last spring, it was flowing. There was quite a bit of flow in the canal. So it starts overtopping the canal. So it's not just like removing a little bit of sediment. It's like, okay, the canal's overtopping. Like we need to address this. It's just going to get worse. So.
Great. Thank you. Gianna, any others?
Yeah, I've got one more. You mentioned that some of these canals are inoperable. Is there any chance in the future that those will become operable?
Valley Water has no plans on maintaining the inoperable canals to an operable condition.
What does it mean to be operable is a question from the audience.
So the canals were designed for water supply purposes, so to transport water supplies. And we have no plans on using those canals for water supply purposes again. And that's because our raw water distribution system, has changed over time since Valley Water came to be. And so we just have no use for those canals anymore.
How old are these canals?
As old as 1930s. They were built in the 1930s and 1950s. And some of them we haven't used since like 1980.
So it's fair to say that there were very few homes. This was the way you could get water from one place to another because there were no pipelines running through the orchards. So,
right. And I think the Coyote Canal was constructed originally to reduce groundwater levels like around the orchards in the Coyote Valley. Is my understanding. I'm not.
Shift the water to the South San Jose area.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like there's a lot of history to these canals.
There is.
Its usage, but so it sounds like we're just going to maintain them the way they are currently, and not change the usage. We don't have any plans to change the usage. Okay.
It won't.
Terrific. Gianna, any other questions?
I do not have any other questions.
Okay. This is it's 7:15. Any questions from the audience? I think we will, at this point, be able to conclude our community meeting for the Canal Maintenance Program. And thank you very much for your participation. This will be posted on Valley Water's YouTube channel. So if you want to watch it again and again, you're welcome to. And remember to submit those questions that you have or comments that really should be considered as a part of the EIR in writing or by email by February 12th. Before we close today's meeting, we ask that you consider learning more about and providing your input to 2 critical Valley Water efforts: the Water Supply Master Plan, Valley Water's guiding document for long-term investments and planning to ensure water supply reliability for the county's social, economic, and environmental well-being. And we have some handouts at the front desk or in the link that's being shared in the chat box. And our capital improvement program contains all of our capital projects. The annual review of projects for potential placement on the CIP 5-year is just now beginning, and we want your input on the projects we should prioritize. Click on the link shared in the chat box for more information. You can also visit our Valley Water webpage and click on Board Committees under How We Operate. Thank you all for making time to participate in this public meeting, and have a great night.